Let me see if I can see it up here on Facebook. Give me a moment, guys. There it is. All right, ladies and gents, welcome to the weekly live Q&A that we do here every Friday. My name's Kylan Hurt, and I'm a front-end developer for the Edge Wallet team. And next to me is our business development manager, Mr. Brett Musser, a.k.a. Maverick.
I like to go by Guru, business development guru.
He likes to go by Guru now. Is that right?
Yeah, we're more of a new age company.
He's constantly changing his personality, his identity. He's a paradigm shifter, if you will.
Yeah, I got a few archetypes kind of.
Archetypes.
Just bubbling inside, ready to come out at any moment. You know.
We have a lot of unique types here at Edge Wallet. So we have a lot to talk about this week. Obviously, there's some news in the general cryptocurrency industry. Oh, actually, before we start, if you have any questions or comments, we are live. We're on Twitter, we're on Facebook, we're on YouTube. We are keeping an eye on those channels. So if you have any questions, throw them our way. If you want to comment on some of the stories that we're talking about, then please feel free to put your comments in there, and we'll see them and we'll try to respond to them. Okay, so first things first, Edge Wallet. If you don't have it, it's on iOS and Android. You should try it. And we have a new release here. It's version 1.5.0, which has several significant changes here. Well, I guess I should say new features, which is always exciting. New features are the best. We have added support for Change Now. That's an exchange provider, crypto to crypto change, exchange provider. And so right now at this point we have, let me think here, we have Shapeshift, we have Changely, and now we have Change Now. And if I remember correctly, I don't believe that they do, their KYC is too strict at all. So
no,
it's good.
Not at all. Yeah.
Yeah, so at this point we have Change Now and Changely. It's hard to not get those two mixed up. And they both don't do KYC, which is good because, let's be honest, a lot of us don't want to have to do KYC. It's just another step. Another roadblock when you just want to exchange your money.
Especially going crypto to crypto.
Yeah.
In-person exchanges.
Right.
But crypto to crypto should be, accountless, peer-to-peer. And we've got plenty of options for people in there.
Yeah, with fiat to crypto, you're interchanging with the fiat system, which, of course, is almost 100% controlled by the governments. And they are the main people who really want to watch what you're doing with your money. That is just the nature of government in general and some of the stuff that we are trying to slowly transition away from. We've added support for Japanese and Portuguese. So for those of you who don't know, we wrote our application, our wallet, in a way that we can really get translators to help translate the interface to users. That way we can reach a more global market. So if you're in Japan or if you are in Portugal or Brazil, go ahead and take a look and see if you are able to get it in Portuguese or Japanese.
It's taken us some time to localize Edge. We had Airbits localized for a while, and we have users all around the world: Iran, Turkey, Japan, Australia, Brazil. So it's really important for us to get all the languages out there.
Yeah, absolutely. We're talking about something that we want to be a global currency, so it makes sense for it to be able to be accessed. Setting. So some of you may have noticed that if you were using certain fiat currencies, I'm trying to think, what was the one that I was working with? It wasn't US dollars. I think it was Australian dollars or something like that. And a bunch of the exchange rates were showing $0. So that was a glitch. So don't worry, you're not bankrupt, or at least not through the app. You're not bankrupt. So hopefully if you get the latest, the latest version, you should be able to see that fixed. There were some design changes, so now they all look similar. So as you add more currencies, the chances of two of their logos looking too similar, it can be an issue. We don't want people accidentally sending a currency that they don't want to send, or we don't want any confusion either. We've also added Shapeshift login and logout inside of the exchange settings. So I believe if you want to, if you want to enable your account or disable your account with Shapeshift, all you have to do is go to the settings, go to the exchange settings specifically within the settings screen. How many currencies do we have to add more? So if you guys have a specific currency that you want us to add, hit us up on Facebook.
If they're viable, right? They got to have nodes. They got to have wallet libraries. They got to have developers. We're not just going to add any random coin.
Yeah, well, we like to at least know what people want as well, right?
Yeah, you got to have minimum requirements, right? They have nodes, they have developers, they have wallet libraries.
Or they're willing to pay us a lot, right? if you're willing to pay us a lot, we can be convinced. Okay, so what do you want to start off with? We were reading up on RChain.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man. So I didn't even know much about this story, but obviously in 2017, a lot of ICO money was produced.
They actually didn't have an ICO.
Oh, they did not have an ICO.
But so they did raise money. So it's not. It was similar, right? They raised money for a project in cryptocurrency, but it wasn't specifically an ICO.
Okay,
I know that.
Got it.
But it's still in that spirit. Yeah, it's still in that spirit.
Sounds very ICO-ish.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, so essentially they raised something like, what was it, $30 million?
Something
just
like
a little
that,
bit less than $30 million, I think, last year. And now, the reason I came across this was because Fluffy Pony, who was kind of the face of Monero for a while, it's not really anymore. He was busting. Let me think of another term to use.
Trolling.
He was trolling
likes to troll,
Vlad Zamfir,
yeah.
right? Because Vlad is one of the guys. Was he one of the founders of Ethereum, or is he just a core developer?
I would say a founder. Yeah,
founder.
As far as I know,
yeah, he's on that level.
I would definitely say he's one of the top researchers, and I think he does a pretty good job, in terms of explaining some of the downfalls of things or the trade-offs. I don't see him too outlandish, but he's been on some. He's been associated with some projects that have not, I guess, succeeded in there.
With a critical eye at some of the other projects, I have $30 million, and to put a long story short, it sounds like there was some serious borderline corruption going on there.
Yeah.
Very serious leadership issues. Of the $30 million that they raised, they spent something like $24 million of it on some, and they're trying to create I think a scalable blockchain. And they spent $24 million of their $30 million on what was it? A service that has to do with music, right? And being able to stream music because they wanted to be able to
RSong. I think that was the application RSong.
They want to be able to prove that you can actually stream music on their blockchain. But can you imagine if you're an investor and you invest in a company and they take the large majority of the money that you've invested and they put it into just one thing?
I'd like to. I didn't look at what the investment perspectives was, or was this team, had they handled large amounts of money before? That's something as an investor I'd want to know, because someone might be smart and capable, but if they've never handled a large amount of money, they don't know all the kind of ancillary and social problems that come with that, and it tends to change your psychology, right? And you get complacent, right? You start to you feel abundant, so you feel like you can just not do as much due diligence on the things you're buying. You might start with some frivolous spending, right? That's where it's a lot of smart investors invest maybe smaller amounts with milestones to be made, especially for inexperienced teams.
Right.
Even though they might have some educational. Some signaling there. Maybe they have a PhD in something, or they've done some other things in business. But if they've never handled a large amount of money and carried through a difficult, technological problem, or handled a really tough problem with a lot of money, I'm going to be skeptical about giving them a lot of money, especially in a space like this. Yeah. And then I was reading it. It's like they had a CEO and CFO. That doesn't sound very decentralized to me, making a decentralized platform. Why is there issues with what the CFO is doing with the money? It shouldn't even be, and to me, it shouldn't even get to that position, right?
Yeah.
If they're truly doing something different.
Yeah, and it's funny, they ended the article with, we're ultimately decentralization is the goal. It's like, well, it doesn't sound like the goal, and your guys are starting off very centralized. If you have a central board that can just spend the large majority of the funds just with one transaction, with one deal, I mean, that's just completely ridiculous. Yeah. And this just kind of emphasizes the point that a lot of people who are good at cryptography and writing code, they're good at that, but man, a lot of times they're just terrible at other stuff, right?
Yeah. I mean, we can't all be good at everything. You need usually a big team that each person can handle their little thing, and then maybe you have an orchestrator that can do it all. But it definitely seemed to have a hierarchical structure, which is kind of anathema to what people are trying to accomplish in cryptocurrencies and blockchains. But it's very hard to go from centralized, especially the longer you stay relatively centralized, to decentralized. Decentralization has to be defended. It's kind of easy. I'd say centralization is more comfortable because it's like you have someone to point to, or there's like a team you can go to or sue, or they have responsibility. But decentralization is hard to really not only start it off that way, but keep it that way.
Yeah, and as always, you have to think about what's the incentives here. I mean, that's kind of the recurring theme within cryptocurrency and the world in general.
Yeah.
So if it's centralized, and these guys enjoy all this power and they can throw money around. If they're the ones making the decisions and they're eventually supposed to give the roadmap toward decentralization, do they have incentive to have a quick roadmap, or do they have an incentive to just keep it more or less how it is?
Well, and if we just compare this to what Satoshi did starting Bitcoin, it's like almost the polar opposite, right?
Yeah.
There was no funding. He released a white paper, and then the prototype was pretty much working a couple months later. A product that Bitcoin was being mined on January 3rd, and I think Hal Finney was running the other client, and then pretty soon you had a bunch of other people kind of helping out, and there was no CEO or CFO. They weren't raising money; they were creating a new network, and people kind of came on it organically. And this stuff is kind of the complete opposite of that. And I don't really have hard feelings about them having difficult. It's a lot of the space is like an adult science fair, so you got a lot of adults that have good ideas, just like kids who have good ideas in a adult or their science fair. But a lot of projects aren't really that great.
What Brett is trying to say, that kids suck at science in their science fair.
Generally, yes.
Their projects suck.
Like objectively. Right.
So if you're a little kid out there and you're doing a science project,
you might want to stop.
Yeah, just stop. Your project probably sucks.
Newton probably already figured it out.
Newton was, anyways.
Well, are you gonna trash talk Newton right now?
No, I was gonna say he's the best scientist of all of them.
I agree.
He invented calculus. I mean, that by itself is just ridiculous. Okay, so that's enough on that, right? So let's see. We got quite some news here. We also have questions from users. One user asks, can Edge be used in Iran or any country for that matter? Yes, of course it can. That's a pretty simple answer there. And the great thing is, even if the App Store does not offer, at least on Android, if the App Store does not offer it in your country for whatever reason, maybe they got some sort of authoritarian rule there, you can still download the latest release of our app on Android by going to edge.app/app. And we update that every time we make an update to the actual application. So we do try to get this in as many hands as possible. And we are trying to help you, how would I say this, get around those roadblocks, right?
Yeah.
Because we don't like roadblocks here. We're more about smashing those roadblocks down.
Yeah, the interesting thing about Iran, they're having, I know their currency has been kind of decimated over the last year or so. Part of that has to do with U.S. sanctions. So, and we've covered this a little bit before, but the dollar, the world financial markets and the world economic trade flows work with the U.S. dollar. That is the kind of the medium of exchange, unit of account, store of value, and Iran has had tensions with the U.S. ever since probably for the last 50 years, especially since 1979, and we haven't really liked what they've been doing with their nuclear program, and
I don't know who this we is. We?
Oh, I'm sorry. I have a mouse in my pocket. I'm talking like I'm the U.S. government.
The U.S. federal government.
I personally don't have a problem with Iran, the country, but I know our past administrations have had issues, and we tend to use our dollar supremacy and some of the payment rails as a weapon. So when they don't do things that we like, we can cut them off from, international funding and stuff like that. So I know I've read some copy from the Iranian Central Bank and some of their representatives.
Is that written in English, or is that?
Yeah, I mean they do have. On Google you can get you press the translate button and you can pretty much read any document in the world.
Go. That works.
Yeah, so they've been pretty definitely more open to alternative systems and cryptocurrencies. And I know some of their population is, pretty technically advanced and do use cryptocurrencies. And I've actually looked on earn.com where they have nodes, they kind of track where all the nodes are, and there's actually a few, or at least a few in Iran. So there's definitely people interested in at least Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. And I know there's been actually a few articles out on prospective miners looking into Iran, and they're not necessarily against that either. They got a cheap source of energy. People are looking for alternatives to kind of step out of the U.S. dollar system. And Iran could kind of put this stuff to work. And I know a bunch of their citizens are using it to either transact or hedge some of the inflation that they're feeling with the Iranian. I forgot what the name of their currency is.
Not the ruble, but it's something like Riyadh. No, it's not the Riyadh.
There's so many. I'm going to look it up right now. Currency.
Yeah, I was going to say in cryptocurrency,
it is the Rial. It is the Rial.
I said Riyadh, so
yeah, you're close.
Riyadh's the capital of Saudi Arabia. So what I was going to say was that it's kind of funny because there are all these sanctions, and man, if there's one recurring theme, it's that the U.S. government has so much power financially, like it's completely ridiculous. The fact that they can do sanctions and pretty much almost destroy a country is just craziness. You would have thought by now that there would be a lot of exchanges, especially crypto to crypto exchanges that would just not do KYC, even ones that are based in other countries, and somehow the U.S. government is able to influence those countries to crack down. So like Binance is what probably the first or second biggest crypto to crypto exchange. They keep on having to switch countries. And it's at the point where it's like almost like they're running out of countries that they can go to.
What are they having trouble in Malta right now?
I don't know if they're having trouble in Malta, but they were in Asia before, and they had to go to Malta
before. Yeah.
I feel like it's just a matter of time that the U.S. government, they're in Malta.
Yeah.
Okay, well let's now go there and start, squeezing them essentially.
I mean, that goes to what a lot of people. We are an imperial power, right? Like our power extends throughout the world. The financial system, which is kind of like this ghost, right?
Yeah.
It's not really a physical thing, but it's a system, and we run it. International trade routes, right? We're kind of in everyone's business all the time, and can definitely inflict harm on states or individuals that don't go along with the current administration's plans or whatever.
Yeah, you would have thought by now that there would be, some country that would just be like the haven to go to. But
I think a lot of elites in other countries benefit from our. I mean, they're somewhat they're threatened. It's like if you don't go along, you'll get hurt. If you do go along, we'll pay you well.
Yeah,
right. It's like an offer you can't refuse.
And it's something where they can fight their own political opponents in their countries.
Exactly, and they'll get a lot of funding from the U.S. Right. Yeah. So it's kind of like a no brainer for people that might not care about their own population.
I think that's why Roger Rivera is trying to create his own like little island nation, which I think is fascinating.
Yeah, I'm all for. I don't know if I would join, but like it
would probably be pretty expensive. I think it's part of the problem. I'd maybe have like a little 10 by 10, square feet.
I'm not into joining utopias. I feel like they end kind of bad.
Yeah. Well, it's something where if all that would happen is that the rest of the countries would say, "Oh my God, look, they're trafficking." They'd just make up a lie.
Look, they're peaceful. We need to bomb them
so they could invade. Yeah. So that's just the nature of it. Let's see here. We have some more questions about Edge. People always have questions about Edge. It's especially as our app adds more features, right? It gets bigger and bigger.
Plus the paparazzi.
Yeah, let's see here. Oh, no, this one's not related to the Fed. Effects of the Fed interest hike increase in cryptocurrencies. So before, everyone kind of was thinking that, okay, how would I say it? They were kind of thinking that when the markets go down, that cryptocurrency will go up. The traditional markets go down, cryptocurrency will go up. I don't know if there's enough truth to that.
Yeah.
Things are decentralized enough where cryptocurrency is kind of global. So, but still, the U.S. and like Europe have a lot of power. So maybe when their markets start to tank, more people will buy cryptocurrency. It might be possible. I don't know if we've really gotten a good test of it yet. Have we?
No, because I think what you need is part of the reason Bitcoin was created has something to do with trust, right? And building a trust minimized financial system, not completely trustless. And what you had in 2008 was a complete breakdown in trust between the banks. That's why it literally seized up. It would be analogous to the Bitcoin blockchain not processing transactions. So in 2008, the banks, and a lot of our system is dependent on interbank lending. And a lot of that interbank lending is based on trust, right, and relationships. And that broke down. The banks just did not trust each other. They were not lending. And when you don't have lending in our debt-based economy, things shut down, right? So you need, I would say you need more of an existential event than just rising interest rates and assets going down. But it does raise, I guess it raises the question for people like, we seem to be going into a bear market for stocks. Stocks have been on a 10-year tear, right? And anyone that's old enough to remember multiple market cycles, right? Like the stock market isn't just destined to go up forever, right? So we're in this bear market, and it might open up people's, their curiosity. Like, hey, maybe stocks aren't somewhere to be. Maybe I've been thinking about Bitcoin or Ethereum, but I think you would need more of a more low-level breakdown in trust in the system itself for there really to be a correlation, some type of big spike in crypto. And personally, my opinion on the interest rate hike, I think the Federal Reserve chairman, and I'm not a fan of the Federal Reserve, but I think Jerome Powell's doing a great job, and he's kind of in an impossible position, especially with the current president and our current long-term outlooks on a lot of our budgets, budget deficits, the debt, kind of an overheating economy. We've been in this, the Federal Reserve has been in this long-term trade of very low interest rates, which is basically keeping the price of money low. So the price in a fiat economy, since fiat is debt, is the interest rate. So the price in Bitcoin is a price for the asset. The price of fiat currency and Federal Reserve money is the interest rate. They've been keeping it depressed for a long time to spur investment and kind of wealth effects consumption. That's really the point. They want institutions to be able to borrow easily and then invest that in the economy
and produce something.
And
that
it's not necessarily natural. So what they're kind of seeing, or what they were seeing before, is there might be a natural rate of return in the economy, and if the interest rate is above that, you're not going to get a lot of investment. So what they want to do is depress that price, so it incentivizes the CFOs of corporations to take out debt, which is basically increasing the supply of money, and then they can kind of get projects going. Now, the problem is when you raise interest rates, a lot of corporations or people that were dependent on cheap financing now have to pay more for it. So people have been talking about, or market commentators have been talking about zombie companies in the U.S. and maybe around the seas that are dependent on cheap money, and with them raising interest rates, it'll be much harder for them to fund projects and find profitable ventures. So you could see some trouble in credit markets, corporate credit markets, and you could see, and you have been seeing, issues in the stock market, which I'm really glad Powell, our Federal Reserve, has kind of kept his resolve, even though the president doesn't want him to raise interest rates. And the market doesn't want him to raise interest rates because, anyone in the market wants cheap money. They can get it cheap, put it into another investment with a higher rate of return, and they get pretty much a guaranteed rate of return. So everyone in the market, or I shouldn't say, a lot of people that are dependent on stocks or cheap credit don't like the move, but it's generally healthy for the U.S. economy.
Yeah, and the longer you keep the rates down, the harder it slingshots back and causes a recession.
Yeah,
so
I would say
that's my theory.
If he stopped raising or even started to decrease, I would say that would be I would say it's bullish, definitely more bullish for the stock markets, but also I think it'd be more bullish for cryptocurrencies in general, because it just shows that they're not serious about their supply curve. They just want to keep pumping money into the system, and they think that'll make everything better. And I don't think that's necessarily the case. I think this is a healthy thing. The market needs to correct, and the chairman of the Federal Reserve, I think, is doing a great job given his impossible situation.
Yeah, it's funny because you have the president, I think some other people in his administration kind of talking smack to the Federal Reserve.
Yeah.
The people in the Federal Reserve, I think because they know it's affecting the stock market, and everyone's always looking at the stock market. But
everyone, all the baby boomers, their 401ks are dependent on the stock market. So, like we were talking, banking products, right? Like you can't get a normal interest rate on, or I should say a historically normal interest rate on checking or savings or CD accounts, right? Like you get like 1-2% maybe. Are borrowing money to consume or
they
buy
don't
real
have
estate.
as much influence through lobbyists with the government.
No,
so of
we
course
don't.
the government,
Exactly.
essentially gives a sweetheart deal to the stock market. All right, so Michelle Ray, one of our longtime ambassadors of Edge. How's it going, Michelle? She asks, does Edge have any global distribution of download info? Are most of the downloads inside of the U.S. or are they outside? Yeah, so from what I can tell, so I don't keep close track of the numbers, but I do know some of the basics. The U.S. is number one. I think that's kind of understandable. Cryptocurrency-wise, the U.S. tends to be number one. Brazil is number two, so we're always looking for ways to get into Brazil. We just mentioned that we added Portuguese, which is the native language in Brazil, and I think we're trying to add some exchanges as well for Brazil. I know we're talking with some of the exchanges down there. And I think number three is actually Iran, of all places. I know that's kind of strange, but that's what I've been told.
I mean, over the years, I've seen when there's currency episodes in certain regions of the world, we will see an uptick in activity. So I think Turkey was number 3 at one point because they were the Turkish lira had a pretty big what is it, a revaluation? Like it just repriced in the market 15-20%. I know when the Russian ruble was having some issues, I saw some. Definitely some increased activity there. So I think our download activity kind of maps pretty well to events, especially currency-related events in the world. I know India was, when they were having a little banking crisis and election crisis, maybe a year ago, popped up a little more on our scene. So
well, we love downloads, so we love it when crises happen.
Well, I mean, honestly, that's... a lot of this stuff is built because of people's knowledge. They know that a lot of these fiat currencies and governments are not that trustworthy, and cryptocurrencies are building alternative systems that people are going to be interested in. So just like Home Depot is going to sell out more for water when there's a hurricane or hurricane shutters, right? So Edge can definitely act as a lifeline for people that are having some currency-related issues in their respective locality.
Yeah, so we got another question. This one's from YouTube, from PDubL22. How's it going, buddy? All right, he says, I'm sure you get asked all the time, but any info on Lightning Network? Ideas on how Edge would implement it?
So I can start off on this?
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, so... let's see. This is something we've been monitoring for a while. Our founders have known about, and a lot of people work here at Lightning Network when it started as an idea, and it's really progressed over the years from just a white paper to, they actually have a main net going and a lot of users, a lot of people that are interested in it. And we actually just got a pull request and message from a core developer who's helping implement Lightning and other wallets. Now, there's still a lot of questions to be answered on getting into the details and exactly how to implement it. But we will be working closely with people that know the Lightning protocol pretty well, and there's already we're already in contact with a few core developers on exactly how we would implement it. Now, the hard part, it's usable now for people that are technically proficient, but we don't want to just cater to those folks. There are people that know how to use, run, maybe their own node and a Lightning node and connect to others and, conduct transactions, and it does work, but it's not at the level of general mainstream usability.
Yeah,
I think it'll
usability is
get
kind
there.
of our mantra.
Yeah, so and we're focused on security and usability. So we need there are some things that need to be fixed, and I don't really have specifics on it right now. Paul would be better to go, and William would be able to explain exactly what needs to be done.
Yeah,
but
so
I don't know if you had any questions.
Yeah. So when it comes to
just the point that we've been talking to a few core developers over the last few months about how to get it into Edge and when that could happen.
Yeah, so every time we kind of have a company meeting and we ask, okay, what do we want to add? Lightning Network is always one of those things that's up toward the top of the list. I don't know if it's super urgent just yet, but it is something that several people on our team want. We have maybe 1 or 2 Bitcoin maximalists on the team as well. So there are kind of like, how would I say this? There are little milestones you can get done beforehand that help how would I say, pave the road for Lightning Network.
And our blockchain developer's working on those. But
right.
He has some other things to do as well.
Right. So one of the things when we added, you have the ability to set your own custom nodes for Bitcoin and Bitcoin forks within Edge Wallet. So we added that because we want you to be able to set your own node, but also because you need that sort of functionality for Lightning Network.
Yeah.
So a lot of those smaller milestones beforehand, we're hammering those out with the idea that it'll get us closer to Lightning Network, in addition to giving more options to our users who are even not using Lightning Network. Maybe just people who want to set their own node.
Yeah, so I think the first rollout would definitely be for a more technically proficient crowd. That's I think one of the problems is, and they're trying to solve it, but you have to be online, and that causes a lot of issues. But I think that covers it. I'm excited. I know that community is really excited. I mean, there's a lot of development, a lot of education going on, and they really want to get that layer 2 network working. Yeah, and our specific developer who works on that sort of stuff and who does like the currency plugins, lately he sounds like he's really excited about. So I think he is actively working on some of the early features in order to get that done. But I couldn't give you a timeline at all. So, it's still relatively immature technology, and but we expect it to really develop over the next year.
Yeah. Just check back every month on this live Q&A and ask whoever's on, and you'll get an update when you ask. Try not to ask every week, though. There's only so much progress that happens in 1 week. Okay, so let's see here. I believe we will be doing another live Q&A next week. I'm not sure who will be on, but let's see here. We got, I was going to say Christmas. We have the holidays coming up. So from the Edge team to the rest of all you viewers and Edge users out there, we are wishing you happy holidays. Hope you are able to enjoy spending time with your family. I hope it's not too uncomfortable when they ask you about those crypto investments that you made last Christmas. What were you going to say?
Are you in California?
I'm always around. Okay. I pretty much don't leave at this point. I'm chained.
You seem a little upset about that.
I'm chained to my desk. No, I just like getting stuff done. What am I going to do? My family's in San Diego anyway, so. Oh, well, yep. So next Friday, we are here, Edge Live Q&A. So if you have questions or comments until then, definitely do yourself a favor and send them our way. You don't have to wait until our live Q&A. You can ask us on Twitter, Facebook. You can even email us.
We're so social.
We are very social.
We're out there. Social butterflies.
We like to interact with you guys. All right. Till next week.
Bye, crypto freaks.